In this video, we're going to take a look at setting up your checking accounts. So if I go to my applications dropdown, click into cash management, and either from the all or the setup tab, you can get into your accounts. So you can set up credit card accounts, checking accounts, or savings accounts. And for this particular video, we're going to focus on our checking accounts. There's going to be a separate video on credit cards, and savings are going to look pretty much exactly the same as your checking. So when I get in here, then I'm going to click add so that you can see what it looks like for setting up a fresh account. You can set up your checking accounts at the top level, or if you only want them to be seen and used at entity level, you can decide to set them up at your entity instead. So that is covered in the planning session, but if you're not 100% sure about how you want to proceed with that after having the planning session, then please do reach out to us. So I'm going to click add, and anything with a red asterisk in here is required. So your checking account ID is just going to be the ID that determines, like, at an easy glance for you what the bank account is. Then you have your bank number, name, routing number, etc. This is information you're going to fill in that pertains to the bank account itself. Reconciliation match sequence is an additional report that you can run that will show you how transactions are linked within the bank. It's not a very popular report, and if you are going to set it up, it does have to be set up as alpha. We don't see a lot of clients using this. And then down here on your accounting information section, you have to fill in your GL account and your location for each checking account. So GL account is required. I would assume they're already in the system for you. If they're not, you can hit the drop down here and you can add it on the fly. It's probably going to be somewhere in the 1000s, and put in a title for that. And then your quick start category, I would imagine, is going to be cash and cash equivalents. Once you select your quick start category, your account type, normal balance, and period end closing type are going to default in. So if you need to set that up on the fly, then you can do that there. It's going to be one GL account per bank account. So if you have multiple accounts in the system, you need a different GL account for each one of those bank accounts. Your journals for payables and receivables should default in here and should not need to be changed. And then for your service charges and your interest earned, you can choose, and probably should choose, an account here for those. And that's just going to make your life easier for when you are putting in cash management, interest and charges. If you add a transaction here for interest and charges, once you select the bank account, the GL account defaults in whether you select service charge or interest earned, because it's been set up at the checking account level. So it's just going to make life easier for yourself. So you can put in your service charge GL account and your interest earned GL account there. You can link a checking account to a specific department if that is something that you wish to do. And you do have to tag it to a specific location. So you would set that up here. And I do want to mention that when you're early in the process and you put in your information here, these fields will be white and they can be changed. Once you have transactions linked to a bank account, the GL account and the location ID get grayed out and they will not be able to be edited. You'll have to untie all transactions to the bank account in order to change your GL account and your location. So say you're not too far into the process, you have a few transactions, there's no payments, you just need to delete out those transactions, and then you could edit the GL account and the location. The other scenario is you have some paid transactions, you would have to reverse them out of the system to untie them to the bank, and then you could change the GL account and location. The other scenario is that you're further down the process, you have several hundreds of transactions in the system. That's just not a viable option for you to start reversing out and deleting transactions. And the best case scenario there is just set up a brand new account with the correct details. So you want to make sure you're putting in the right GL account and location here for your checking accounts and your savings accounts. Okay, applied rule set then. This is how you set up matching rules for your bank accounts So let's say you're doing bank feeds or you're importing transactions from the bank. You will set up matching rules to make your reconciliation process more streamlined. And we do have a video coming up that will go into more detail on that. But here is where you would apply that to your checking accounts. Okay, so that's your details tab. On your check printing tab, then we have different options for printing. So we have blank check stock, which is your micker. And micker is a specific printer and a specific ink that you have to use for micker. This would be used for companies that have multiple bank accounts because it's actual blank checks. So when you're printing from multiple different bank accounts, rather than having to change around your check stock in the printer, you could use micker, and micker checks are going to print all of the information onto the check. So they print the account number, the routing number, and all of that information. So this would be commonly used for companies that have multiple bank accounts, maybe multiple entities. But I would say maybe 80% of our clients are going to use pre-printed check stock. And then the other option is you can disable check printing entirely from an account if you only ever use ACH or something like that. So let's look at pre-printed check stock. The options are very similar for pre-printed and micker. So if I am using my pre-printed check stock, go down here to my company address and logo section. So if you have your address on your checks already, you would leave this off. You don't want to print that because it's already appearing on your checks. If you do want to print, you would check this off, and then you have two options for this. You can either use your address from your company information, which is in your company setup section. It'll live in here in company. Or use the following address and you can change it here so that it appears on your checks the way you want. But if your address is already printed on your checks, you just don't check that off because you don't want it to duplicate on the check. So signatures, then they give you the dimensions for what you're supposed to upload. And when you're first setting up your checking account, like it looks here for me, you don't see the option to upload checks, and you also do not see the option to do a print preview for your check. Sorry, you don't see the option to upload signature, and you don't see the option to preview your checks. So if I go into, I'm going to duplicate my tab. That's a nice little trick too. If you guys don't know, you can right click on your tab and duplicate, and it just brings up a fresh screen of what you're looking at, which is very handy to know. So if I go into my cash management checking and I'm going to look at one of the accounts that I have set up. So because this is set up already, I do have the upload signature button here available, and I have my print preview option as well. So you'll just have to fill in the information for your checking account, save it, and then when you come back in, it gives you the option for a signature upload. So there's certain dimensions that you have to follow. It has to be GIF or JPEG or GIF or whatever these are called. And you can use two signatures on a check. If you press the little question mark button, it gives you a little bit more information on that. And then you also have the option in your preferences in the top right-hand corner to, let me go into that from this page. 1 second. I'm going to go to preferences, my name, preferences, and scroll all the way down here. There is a checks section in preferences where you can upload a signature. So let's say you have multiple owners, and when they're logged in, if they're printing out checks, they want to use their own signature. So that could be uploaded here in your preferences. And you can also slightly alter the alignment of your checks as well based on the printer that you use. So let's say if there's people that are working from home and there's people using different printers, they would move their alignment here within check preferences. So if you have a signature uploaded here at the preferences section, this will override the signature on your checking account. So that's good to know. Here in your print settings, then you would fill in the next check number in your stock, and that's just going to keep running tally. Then that's going to update as checks are printed out of the system. For your printing format, you're going to use either standard or high security, depending on what stock you buy. These are Canadian, so we're not going to worry about them. But if I choose standard, I can choose top, middle, or bottom, depending on where the check is on the stock that you have, or high security has top, middle, and bottom. So there are your options. And then also here on print line item detail on check stubs, if you check that off, it prints out the GL account, which you may or may not want. And then there's additional detail here, print these location details on the stub. It's for, you can do ID, name, or both. So whatever you choose to do there. And then additional text. If you put in additional text, let me just do it actually on this screen. On one of my existing accounts, I'm going to go in here, check printing tab, go to the bottom, and I'm going to put in additional text, test. I think I have to save that. So let me save it and then go back in again and view my preview. So if you put in additional text, it appears under the signature line. So if that's something that you want, then you can put that in there, but do be aware that that's where it's going to pop up. So that is your check printing tab. If you go to Ask Richard, we have an article on that, which will give you links on where to go to buy check stock that is compatible with Intacct. So there's more information on Ask Richard check printing. Let's just switch over to the Micker really quickly and take a look. There's this additional section down here for how your account details are going to align on your check as they print. So if you're using Micker, I'm going to assume that you're pretty familiar with it already. So this language is not going to be unusual for you. So bank file then. This is where you will enable your ACH payments. If you're going to be doing ACH payments out of the system, you absolutely need to turn this on. But don't turn it on just yet because, as you can see, there's all these red asterisks. You need to have that information filled in. And we do have another video coming up in this section, which goes into more detail on setting up your ACH payments. So basically, you're going to click into this ACH bank ID, add, and then you have to put in your information here. And there's a pretty good section in support here. If you hit the little question mark and hit standard ACH bank confirmation, it goes through all the fields that you need to fill in. So like immediate destination name and immediate destination ID are actually just your account name and your routing numbers. I'm not sure why they don't just say that there, but anyway. So you're going to have another video where we go into more depth on this. So I wouldn't turn this on just yet because you do have to fill out all of these fields before it'll let you save. So just leave it as none for now. And then on your instance, you may see a banking cloud button here. I don't have it turned on for my instance, but you may see it. And that is to connect to your bank feeds. It's going to be a little early at this time to be turning on bank feeds. So we don't recommend doing that at this time, but we do have an overview video that goes into more detail on bank feeds. And then there's a whole other section on that later in the process. So if you don't see it, like it doesn't appear here for me, that's totally fine because it is very early in the system for bank feeds, but we will do an overview video in this section on bank feeds, and then it is covered later in the process. Restrictions tab then. You can, so let's say you set up your bank account at the top level. You can restrict it to top level only, or you can say that it is restricted to a specific entity. So to give you a better idea of what this looks like, let me go to my checking account, go to restrictions. So this checking account is my ET checking. So right now it's unrestricted. So if I go to my Timberline GC, and I go to my cash management checking, I can see my ET checking here, okay? So then if I go back to top level and I restrict this account and I say I want it to be restricted to, I'm actually going to restrict it to Timberline GC. So that was a bad example to show you, but I'm going to restrict it to Timberline GC and I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to pop into Timberline Development. And I'm not going to be able to see that account now at Timberline Development because, so this is ET Checking 02, which is a separate account, but I cannot see my regular ET Checking account because it's been restricted just to my GC entity. So that is something that you can do with your bank accounts. You can restrict them to top level, or you can restrict them to your entities, or you can obviously leave it unrestricted, which is totally fine. If you set up your bank accounts at entity level, they're automatically restricted in that sense. So there are your options for restrictions. And if you are setting up your bank accounts at entity level, you're going to be doing your reconciliations at entity level as well. So that's good to know. Payment providers we don't use, so we're going to just gloss over that. I'm going to save that. And yeah, so that's your overview of checking accounts. Your bank feeds are going to be covered again. Your ACH, turning on ACH payments, is going to be covered in another video. Please do look at Ask Richard about where you can purchase checks that are compatible with Intacct. And then also you need to make sure it's a separate GL account for each bank account. They do have to be associated with the location, and these cannot be changed once transactions are linked to the bank account. So you'll see this is an existing account that I had in the system, and there are transactions linked to this. So these are grayed out now. I cannot change these fields because there's transactions linked to it. So one GL account per bank account, location has to be tagged. They cannot be changed once transactions are linked. And then savings accounts are going to look pretty much the exact same if you go to set them up. Anything with the red asterisk is required. A separate GL account per bank account has to be tagged to a location. Rule sets can be applied here. We're going to have a video on that in this section, which goes into more detail on it. And then for your restrictions, you can do that too. So that's your checking accounts and savings accounts. And stay tuned for some more videos.